Hey traders, and welcome to your weekly Forex forecast. I hope you're all well, and I hope you've all had a wonderful week in the markets, and I hope you've had an even better Easter weekend. Obviously, it's the bank holiday here that I'm recording this, so we are looking at a bit of a shorter week ahead of us, but that shouldn't mean that there aren't the profits there to be made. What we're going to do in this video is we're going to look through 28 different currency pairs, and we're going to try to identify the high probability opportunities that could be setting up for us for the week ahead. But you have to remember that what we're looking at here, there is what we're looking to do with our own accounts. So myself and my brother, what we're going to trade in our own accounts. We're not telling you to go and take any of these trades. We're not authorized or regulated to give investment advice. So these are our own opinions. You still need to go away and do your own due diligence, your own analysis. What these videos, or what we hope these videos will do for you, is basically just sort of supplement that analysis. So give you another view on what it is that you're looking for, which will either confirm what it is that you're looking at, or maybe sort of give you a little bit more food for thought. So if what we think is going to happen is different to what you think is going to happen, that's absolutely fine. Everybody has their own opinions on the markets, but it will just give you an alternative view to the markets and to what it is that you're trading. Okay. If you aren't already subscribed to the channel, please make sure that you do subscribe to the channel. So hit that red subscribe button and also hit the bell so that you get a notification as and when we release more of these videos. With that being said, let's now jump over to the charts and let's see what opportunities could be presenting themselves for us for the week ahead. So if we start by looking at the Aussie Cad, we can see that generally speaking, if you look at the right hand side here, I've color coded all of the pairs. So to let you know whether we're neutral, bullish or bearish. With the Aussie Cad, we're sort of a little bit neutral at the moment. We're looking across the board at the fundamentals. It is neutral. So there's not anything pushing for the Australian dollar or the Canadian dollar as kind of they're even across the board. But the only thing really that's going for us is the price trend. So the fact that the market is now trading below the 100 period moving average. The 10 has now crossed as well. So we've got a little bit of a technical thing going on our hands there. And essentially going into next week, we're going to be looking for more downside price action. We're not just going to take it anywhere. So we want a bearish day. Looking at these candles here, you can see that we've got a bit of indecision on our hands. So we've got doji there, a bit of a spinning top going on right now. So essentially we want to see the market commit its hand before we get involved. But if we do get a nice bearish down day, and by down day, I'm talking about a nice big red candle. So something like this guy over here. If we do get a nice bearish down day, then we will look to get involved and start selling the market. If the market starts to break up from here, I don't think we'll get involved in that particular move. We'll just wait until the market then eventually does turn negative again, and then we'll look to get involved. So not really looking to buy the market here and waiting for the right signal to get in on a sell. If we look at the Aussie Franc, we're very bullish this particular pair. It is moving sideways. So since the 24th of February, when the market made those highs, we had some wild price action in the following days, and then the market sort of gone sideways. We still are bullish on this, but we are waiting for a break to the upside. So what we'll be waiting for essentially is the market to break through the 0.7201, to break up and above that level there, give us a nice bullish update, and then we'll look to start buying up to our next resistance level, which currently sits at the 0.7337. And then once it gets to that level, we'll reassess what things look like then and look to see whether we want to add another position there, take profits, or literally just sort of hold what we currently have. So we'll wait until we get to that level to make that decision, but we're certainly bullish on the Aussie Franc, and we're waiting for a break above the 0.7202 to look to start buying the market. If we look at the Aussie Yen, we're also bullish this pair here. We need to be a little bit mindful of the fact, similarly to the Aussie Franc, although I didn't just mention it there, is the market's gone quite a long way in a short space of time. So we can't be surprised if the market does turn bearish. So if it does sell off from here, we wouldn't get involved in that sell-off as much. We are waiting for a nice up day, and we're waiting for the markets to break through these highs here. Once it does break through these highs, that's going to be the signal for us to get involved and to add more positions in here. So we're actually already carrying a long Aussie yen position. But once it gets up above this level, we will then look to see what we want to do. We'll obviously maintain the position that we're holding, but we may, as the market gets higher, look to either take profits or add something to that. We'll see how we sort of get to it when we come into play there. If we look at the Aussie New Zealand, so we are bullish this pair. The nice thing about this particular pair, believe it or not, is the fact that it has been selling off for the past week. So that shows us that, you know, the market has gone through a bit of a price acceptance phase. When it breaks up above this 10-period moving average, so when we get a nice bullish candle above that 10-period moving average there, we will be looking to buy the market. So we will get involved and we'll be looking, hopefully, for the market to start to push to the upside. The Aussie dollar, so the Aussie dollar here, we were bullish on this last week. This has now gone neutral. So, you know, we're anticipating as much downside move as we are upside. So from that perspective, we'll probably just sort of sit on our hands on this one for the week ahead and just see where the price wants to go. Because yes, we could get a break to the upside, but considering we've gone from bullish to neutral, the trend is a little bit bearish. So we shouldn't be surprised if the market were to break down. So from that perspective, we'll probably stay away from the Aussie dollar until we get a little bit more of a clearer direction there. The Cad Franc is looking to move up, but again, this is a long way from the 100-period moving average. And the currency markets do have this sort of reversion to the mean type dynamic, which you'll notice here. So when it goes a long way from that moving average, it then does spend a fair amount of time consolidating. So, you know, from this pair's perspective, I think we'll wait till we get a bit more of a pullback before we look to start to get in there and start buying. I think if we buy right now, we're sort of chasing a train. It's not like this is one of those meandering uptrends where the market is sort of chugging along slowly but surely to the upside. We've had a bit of a parabolic move here, so the market's, you know, really sort of gone up there very, very quickly. So from that perspective, we should expect some sort of a pullback, and until we get that pullback, I'm not looking to add anything to this particular position. The Cad Yen. So with the Cad Yen here, again, this has moved up quite a long way in quite a short space of time. Again, we could be expecting a little bit of a pullback before the market roars on up. We do feel that we're going to see higher highs here. But before we get those higher highs, we shouldn't be surprised if we get a little bit of a pullback in the Cad Yen here. So if the market were to break a little bit, you know, come back like that, something like that, and then bounce off of that level, that would be absolutely fine for us. That would represent a great buying opportunity because ultimately we are bullish this particular pair. We just don't want to buy at these highs right now. Looking at the Franc Yen, so the Franc Yen is neutral essentially, and we can see that's sort of reflected a little bit in the price action there. So you can see that the price action is very, very sideways. So from that perspective, you know, there are better opportunities out there at the moment. So we're not going to look to do much with this for the week ahead. We'll wait for some momentum to assert itself, and then we would look to get involved in the markets. The Euro Aussie is very bearish. It's obviously moving downwards quite nicely. We have some big moves. We have some nice pullbacks as well. The market has been in this territory for the last month. So if we do get a nice big down day, you can see I've got a trend line drawn in here. If we get a big down day below this level here, so the market closes below there, we will then look to get involved and look to start selling short in the Euro Aussie. If we look at the Eurocad is also moving to the downside. This one isn't swinging as much. So this one here, again, it might be something like the Franc Yen where we want a bit more of a pullback. So something like that, and look to sell up towards that level there, down there, rather than selling where we are right now. Because if we sell where we are right now, it's literally been moving down since the 2nd of February. It hasn't really had much of a break at all. And what you have to understand about trading is that the people that are making money, so all of, you know, the big traders that have managed to push the market down, at some point they're going to want to book some profits. It doesn't mean that they're going to change the direction that they want to trade in. It just means they want to book some profits. And if they're sellers, to get out of their positions, they need to buy, which is going to create some demand in the markets, which will then push the market up a little bit. And then what will happen is all of those sellers that made money here, they will then get back involved when the market's at a bit of a better price, and they will push it down again. So we are bearish, the Eurocad, but we do want to see a pullback before we get involved in that trade. The Euro Franc we've gone neutral on this particular pair right here, although from a technical perspective, the trend is still to the upside. So with that in mind, what we will look to do is if we get a nice big up day, so a nice big momentum green candle in and around here, then we will look to start buying the markets up to our next resistance level at the 1.1215 and see how price reacts when we get up to that level there. The euro pound is definitely very, very bearish, but again, this has gone a long way. This has been selling off since the 11th of January. Obviously, a lot of this dynamic is going to be to do with the vaccine rollout and the disparity between the United Kingdom and the rest of Europe. But essentially, even though we feel that there's going to be more downside moves here, you can see that from a candlestick, from a technical perspective, these candle bodies are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, which is sort of indicative of a bit of a pullback. So what we might see here is the market start to pull back a little bit. So maybe this week we're in a bit of a consolidation week, and then going into next week, we might get the opportunity to sell. It just depends how big those candles are. But at the moment, even though we're bearish, we probably won't add any positions to this. The euro yen has gone neutral. The technical trend is to the upside, but the fundamentals are sort of in a neutral-ish territory. And remember, for those of you that have taken our course and things, when we're looking at the fundamental scorecards, we kind of look at things between, let's say, -2, -1.5 to a +1 or 2 as being roughly neutral. And then when we push on to the 3s and 4s, or the -3s and 4s from a fundamental perspective, from a scorecard perspective, that's when we really get into the bullish and bearish territory. But that zone between -2 and +2 sort of indicates to us that, we will get that directional move, but it just might be a little bit more labored, and there might be a little bit more sideways price action in there. So from this perspective right here, we aren't looking to do, we aren't looking to do anything right now. If the market breaks out above 130.32, then that would represent a fairly decent opportunity to buy. The Euro New Zealand, again, is in neutral territory from a scorecard perspective. So what we're going to look to do with this pair right here is just kind of monitor price action. It's a little bit ugly right now. So we had that massive up day, then the markets have kind of just retraced over the course of the next 7 or 8 days. So really we want to see the markets reassert themselves before we get involved in this trade here. The euro dollar, very, very bearish on this at the moment. And what we will do with this particular pair is we're playing with a support level at right now at 1.1736. We may well get the market pull back to 1.1851. But either way, when we get our next big down day, so at some point this week, we will follow that up with a sell position in the euro dollar. Okay, so we want a nice momentum candle to the downside. And when I say momentum candle, when I say momentum candle, I'm referring to candles like this one here on the 30th of March. A nice big red candle. If we get something like that, then we will be all over that and looking to sell the market. The pound Aussie is neutral and quite frankly, just a terrible chart to look to trade. So we're not going to look to do anything with this one at the moment. The reason that I say it's terrible is just look at the wicks everywhere. There's just really not a lot there that you love about this particular chart. So we're just going to leave that and move on to the next one. The pound CAD is also neutral. It's moving sideways a little bit here. The moving average has dropped below the 100. I think we probably want to see more assertive price action before we get involved in this trade here. So, there are other ones to get involved with this week. So this one we'll just leave on the sidelines and we'll monitor how things develop as the week progresses. The pound franc, we are definitely bullish. We're going to wait for some sideways price action. So maybe the market can kind of move along this level here, which is this previous level of resistance, could it then act as support. If it does that, we will look to buy the highs. So buy the breakout, which will potentially be a breakout of this high here, something like that, and look to trade that up towards the ultimate highs at the 1.3315. But that still remains to be seen where that is. We need to wait for that price action there before we get involved in the trade. But that's what we're looking for. The pound yen has moved up quite nicely. What are we going to do with this right now? Well, the market's gone quite a long way in quite a short space of time. The last sell-off was a relatively aggressive sell-off. We think that the market will go higher, but I don't really want to be buying at this point in time with this pair. I'd much rather see a bit more of a price acceptance phase before I get involved in this trade. So we'll leave that for the moment. The pound New Zealand is currently neutral, so there isn't that much in the way that we want to trade with this particular pair here. You know, that, as I said, on the scorecard perspective, it is sat at a 2, and 2 is roughly neutral territory. If we look at the technicals, it is above the 100 period moving average here. So we could, in theory, if we get a nice big bullish day, then we could, in theory, get involved. So get a candle really kind of push up like that. And then perhaps that would be an opportunity to get involved. But at the moment, we'll sort of just wait to see how this plays out. The pound dollar is moving up quite nicely. It's actually turned neutral with this particular pair right here. But from a technical perspective, the trend certainly is up. The momentum certainly is up. And if this candle closes the way that it looks like it's going to close right here, then we would potentially add a long position onto our portfolio here in anticipation of the market moving up a little bit further. The New Zealand CAD. We are bearish on the New Zealand CAD. We are waiting for a nice big down candle, so a candle that will sell off. Once we get that candle that's to the downside, so it's kind of like the one that we looked at on the pound dollar, but the reverse. So the pound dollar was a nice big bullish candle. We'd like to see a nice big bearish candle here on the New Zealand CAD, and then we will become sellers on this. You know, if the market moves back a little bit, we will look to sell at the 0.8990. If it moves back any more, then we need to start to consider whether the trend has completely changed from that point. The New Zealand Franc is moving up quite nicely, but excuse me. But the frog in my throat here is preventing me from speaking. No, the New Zealand Franc is moving up quite nicely, but if we take a look at the price action in these candles here, it's kind of showing us that the market doesn't really know where it's going. So from that perspective, I'm going to wait on the sidelines, maybe wait for another pullback. Once we've had that pullback, hope that we get some nice momentum candles to the upside, and then start buying into that. The New Zealand yen. So the New Zealand yen is definitely bullish. So we are looking to play this to the upside. Unfortunately, we are coming up to these highs at the 79.01. So that's something we need to be mindful of. If we get out and above that particular level, then we certainly should start considering buying this market and look to get involved there, you know, in a buy trade. The New Zealand dollar has turned neutral. Okay, so last week we were bullish on this one. The price action from last week wasn't really convincing. So, you know, looking at this, it didn't really do what we wanted it to do. So from that perspective, we've turned neutral on this one, and we're just going to wait to see how this plays out before we get involved in this trade. The dollar CAD, so this one is neutral. Where are we looking to play this? I think we can look to play some downside potential here. So if this particular candle here closes roughly where it is right now, then going into tomorrow's trading, when the market breaks the low of that candle, then we can look to get involved there on a sell trade, because, you know, even though we're neutral from the longer term perspective, from the scorecard perspective, you know, the trend perspective certainly still is to the downside. So the most likely direction we're going to see the market move is lower. So it may not get to the lows of the 1.2377, but certainly it should make an attempt there, and that's what we'll be looking to exploit. The dollar franc has turned neutral. So at the moment here, we're still looking from a technical perspective. We'd still be buyers in this particular market, but we want to see a momentum candle before we get in there. At the moment, it looks like the market is pulling back, which is absolutely fine. We don't have a problem with that. We will look to start buying this pair once we get a move back below the 10-period moving average, followed by a nice momentum move back above it. And at that point, we will then look to get involved and start buying the markets. Finally, if we look at the dollar yen, very, very bullish, this particular pair here. This one's gone a very long way in a very short space of time, but with the yen, it does have the potential to do that. But what I would prefer to see with the dollar yen right here is to see the market pull back a little bit, go through a little bit of price acceptance, and then maybe next week give us that bullish momentum move to the upside, which we will then look to get involved in. Okay, so that wraps it up for this week's weekly Forex forecast. I hope you've all enjoyed it. I hope it's given you some good food for thought. Again, as I said at the beginning, this is what we're going to do with our own accounts. We're giving you the general direction of the markets. You can then apply your favorite entry strategy to that now that you understand which way we believe the general direction of the markets are going to go.